Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker. On this episode of Law Weekly, what is competition law and what are the regulatory and enforcement trends across the continent? We take you to discussions around unpacking the Nigerian Competition Act and the Consumer Welfare Standard. And we also have a surprise guest. He needs no introduction. The Nollywood veteran and lawyer joins me on his new project, The People's Lawyer. Plus, highlights of the commissioning of the Federal Judicial Liaison Office and the Justice Mary Odili Judicial Institute. Also, we have our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Let's head to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, commissioned 2 judicial institutes by the Nyesom Wike administration.
Gathered here are the Executive Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, the Chief Judge of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, the Honoree, Justice Mary Odili, retired, and members of the Executive, Legislature, and Judicial arm of government, religious leaders, and well-wishers. They are all assembled to witness the commissioning of the Federal Judicial Liaison Office, an office for judicial officers to perform their duties, and the Justice Mary Odili Judicial Institute, an establishment in honor of outstanding contribution to Nigerian jurisprudence for knowledge and expertise. The honoree of the day, giving the lecture, speaks on how she has been the chief recipient of the grace of God.
I was not the most intelligent in our set. Ichendu, who became our chief judge here, had the faculty prize in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Faculty of Law. I was not the most cerebral of the magistrates in Rivers State, nor that of the High Court. But God, in his way of elevating even the unknown to prominence, decided he had to have me elevated. We cannot thank him enough. Nor can I thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for all the support my husband and I have had over the years. And even in some irritating moments, you've stood by the family of Peter Odili, knowing that we have no one else to run to but God Almighty and the people of Rivers and the people of Nigeria who have always stood for what is right. Since the governor has given me this honor of naming an edifice of this nature, with the content of what it represents, knowledge and expertise for judicial officers, I am giving this lecture for the young judges, magistrates, customary courts of appeal, or customary courts, for us all to learn that at all times the will of God will prevail, and when we are not chosen today, we do not know what God has programmed for the future.
The governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, talks about the implications of the establishment of the Judicial Institute.
There's nothing wrong in the state having their own judicial institute that will train train judges who, of course, apply the laws, preside over matters that affect the state and businesses around here. But we thank God today that the federal government, through the CJED, that what we are doing is to complement the efforts of NJI. We are not taking over the functions of NJI, we are rather complementing their efforts so that our own judges will be ahead of other states.
He also assures and guarantees the independence of the judiciary in the state.
I want a body that, of course, you have a supervision, but it will not look like where supervision that will hamper the working of the institute. I want where the institute, just like you have the arbitration court, you have the family court and the rest, where budget is being made for them. There will be a different budget for this institute. When we're asking, when do we name it after at the Executive Council? I can tell you from right to left, everybody says Justice Mary Odele. And I said, why? I said, people are Shako fans. Why? You are mentioning her name because you know she's my mother, so you want to make me happy. And they said, look, check it. She's the only person in this state who has risen from the magistracy to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal, down to Supreme Court. I'm not saying that she's the only one who has been to Supreme Court, no. But I'm talking about from the magistracy to Supreme Court. And luckily retired without blemish, retired with happiness.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria speaks about the importance of a judicial institute.
From available statistics, Lagos and Rivers states come tops in the ranking of the most litigious states in the country. What this implies is that all the facilities, manpower, financial and allied materials are perennially stretched far beyond permissible limits to attend to the avalanche of cases that are filed on a daily basis at the various levels of courts in the states. That vividly underscores the enormity of work judicial officers in these two states are inundated with on the regular basis. Like Abraham Harold Mostel, a renowned American psychologist and behaviorist, had said, a good shelter, a good car, a good welfare package, and of course a conducive work environment by way of conducive office accommodation are those basic incentives that could remarkably serve as the magic wand to bring out the genuineness in human beings for optimum performance. This act of magnanimity and camaraderie has not only marked you out as a man of inestimable honor, but as a quintessential statesman whose imprints on the sands of time will remain indelible. A judicial officer without a roof over his head can never be in the right frame of mind to adjudicate.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria then inaugurates the institute.
This edifice, constructed by His Excellency Governor Wike administration in Rivers State.
Almighty God, you are my all in all.
It's the Competition Law in Africa conference taking place in Lagos. Participants from all of Africa, lawyers, industry experts and others gather for 2 days to thrash out issues relating to regulatory development and enforcement trends across the continent.
We are applied to aiding the review.
Speaker after speaker unpack consumer welfare standards, among other issues.
Some of the major developments in terms of the key sectors that the measures we've reviewed have involved. Certainly, banking and financial services has been one of the key sectors. We have cleared a number of measures in the banking and financial services, most of which are accessible on our website. I think, interestingly, another area also is the prominence of mergers through private equity funds. I think this has also been an area where we are seeing quite a number of major filings which are being implemented through this mode.
Now, if you were to assess market power and define relevant markets based on the traditional models, you might not pick that up in your ex-ante review. So if you look at how traditional online advertisers have evolved their models from, pay-per-click to pay-per duration of stay, trying to, catch the attention of the users, to pay per buy, and now potentially they are competitors with online market e-commerce sites, from purely advertising and search engines. Their business models have evolved. So that for me is what's sort of striking in that context.
They're in effect providing a bit of a subsidy to the smaller restaurants because they're bringing customers onto that platform. It enhances the value of the platform overall. So on face it might look as if charging a higher price to the small restaurant than to the big restaurant is harming that small restaurant's ability to sustain itself in the market. But if you think about the counterfactual where you charge a uniform price, those large restaurants, they have alternative options. They might not go somewhere else. The platform as a whole is harmed, and so the participation of even those small restaurants is not necessarily enhanced. So incentives and counterfactual, I think, are two overarching broad tools that regulators can use to understand these issues.
I think that even though buyer power issues are recognized as part of market issues, I think there's a problem in analyzing mergers when the buyer exploitation is abroad and the consumer benefits are at home. And this would be, for example, Bayer Monsanto, where US and EU are not looking at the harmed farmers in Africa. And they did in this case. They had a lot of spin-offs, but this was not a harm they saw, and a huge harm in the market. Unless we move to a more cosmopolitan analysis of a whole merger and look where all the harms and benefits are, that problem will not be cured.
Speaking on the sidelines of the program, the Executive Vice Chairman, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, speaks on the challenges affecting consumers in Nigeria.
Inflation continues to present pressure on what is affordable and disposable income. By the same token, businesses are in a bid to keep their margins, sometimes cutting corners and struggling also to find a balance between fair pricing and a value proposition. All these are challenges that consumers face. The other thing is that there's a regulatory framework that is strengthening on a daily basis, but still needs to be more robust and even stronger. But the most important thing, I think, is consumers need to be a little more discriminatory. They need to seek to enforce their rights far more. The approach of feeling helpless without complaining or taking advantage of the channels that are open for ventilating your dissatisfaction never helps. The most important and most potent component of any right enforcement mechanism is a right holder who's willing to enforce the rights.
Babatunde Ajibade, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and co-chair IBA Africa Regional Forum, references these high points of the conference.
In the period that I've been involved in the leadership, we have tried to make the forum more vibrant. And one of the objectives, which is also exemplified by the hosting of this conference, has been to bring the IBA closer to the African lawyer. As you may know, attendance or participation in IBA activities ordinarily necessitates a certain amount of expenditure because you have to travel long distances to attend the IBA flagship conference. And even conferences such as this typically take place in Europe and North America. But one of our objectives was to ensure that as much as possible we would bring the IBA's activities closer to the African lawyer so that African lawyers can participate without having to incur such large expenses.
Welcome back to some of the trending courtroom stories.
We begin with the Court of Appeal in Abuja, which has upheld the conviction of Faisal, the son of the jailed ex-chairman of the defunct Pension Reform Task Force team, Abdulrashid Maina, for conspiracy and money laundering. He was sentenced to 3 years each for counts 1 and 3, and he got 14 years for count 2. Delivering judgment, a 3-member panel of the appellate court reduced the 5 years in relation to counts 2 and 3 to 3 years. The court also reduced the sentence of 14 years in count 2 to 7 years on the grounds that he's a first-time offender, making that 10 years altogether. In Lagos, a federal high court has fixed the 21st of February 2023 for the commencement of trial in the 4-count money laundering charge against the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olashokbo Shashere. He was arraigned by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) on the 29th of October on the offense bordering on money laundering to the tune of $100,000. The court on Thursday subsequently adjourned the proceedings to February 21, 2023, as the prosecution, who had given due notice to the court, was absent. Staying in Lagos, a federal high court on Thursday renewed the ruling that all parties in the case involving the establishment of a proposed national carrier called the Nigeria Air maintain status quo while the matter is pending in court. This ruling was given by Justice Ambrose Lewis Alagoa after the defendants pleaded for an adjournment to enable them ample time to prepare for the suit, whose notice was delivered to them on the 18th of November. The case was filed by the registered trustees of the Airline Operators of Nigeria, AON, and 5 others in the aviation industry. The other members in the aviation industry include Asman Air Services Limited, Air Peace Limited, Max Air Limited, United Nigeria Airline Company Limited, and Top Brass Aviation Limited. The first to 4th defendants in the suit are Nigerian Air, Ethiopian Airlines, Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika, and Attorney General of the Federation Abubakar Malami. The judge adjourned the proceedings till the 13th of February 2023. In another suit, the key suspect Chidinma Ojukwu in the murder of the Chief Executive Officer of Super TV Osufo Ataga told the Lagos High Court sitting in Tafawa Balewa Square that the 2 statements she wrote to the police station were torn and she was forced to sign the ones written by the police officers. Chidinma, who testified in a trial within trial to determine the voluntariness of her statement's defense, told Justice Yetunde Adesonya that ASP Olusegun Bamidele wrote a statement, asked her to rehearse what he had written, and made her narrate the same to the Commissioner of Police. And we round off with a special counsel to the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, Mr. Aloy Ejimako, who's filed a suit at the High Court of Abia State, Umuahia, against the Director General, National Intelligence Agency, Mr. Ahmed Abubakar, for his alleged role in the 8 days false imprisonment of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya. The suit is prompted by newly discovered evidence that implicated Mr. Abubakar beyond the infamous extraordinary rendition. The suit is seeking reliefs which include a declaration that the Director General acted in bad faith and abused his office by falsely imprisoning Nnamdi Kanu at the said location in Kenya. He is also asking the court to direct the Director General to pay his client the sum of 20 billion naira, being general and exemplary damages. He further wants the court to direct the defendant to write and deliver an unreserved personal letter of apology and shall be published in 2 national newspapers.
And now here's our interview with our very special guest. Are you working on anything new? Is there something you can also talk about?
Personally, yes. After my court bar, before my court bar, I had made up my mind I was going to marry law and entertainment. So what most of my mind was advocacy. That's my special area in law, because we need to make many advocacies for the immediate environment where we live, where the literacy level is not commendable. So I have come up with what I have put on YouTube for now, The People's Lawyer. The People's Lawyer is like a law clinic. It's looking at public interest stories and teaching the public to know their rights, and if those rights are breached, what to do. And there are many violations every day, you know. So that's what I'm doing now, the people's lawyer. And I'm going to do it for a long time because it's also going to provide avenues for pro bono cases from the public and so on.
And that's a very important area.
Very, very important because, yeah, many of our people who didn't go to school feel threatened, and you have agents, security agencies obtaining money from people due to lack of knowledge and the information and so on. We want at least to provide some information to tell people you can actually approach the law, that it's not always that you must pay a lawyer, because most people say, lawyer, they're expensive. Most of our people don't want to go to court because they feel it's family, or I should take my brother to court. It's better you take your brother to court than using a knife to slaughter your brother. It's better you take your sister to court or take a matter to court for you to get interpretation. So that's what I'm doing through the people's lawyer, to at least make some advocacy. People know your rights. When it's breached or violated, this is what to do. We need to make our own input, and the input I'm making is one of the, I must say it on this program, one of the persons who is a consultant on the program told me as a little boy of 10, 12, he decided he was going to read law because he was watching a drama one day, and the kind of injustice done to somebody made him swear that he would read law. So people tend to agree, get tuned to things when they watch it on drama. So that's why the people's lawyer is not a home video. It's the law dramatized. For instance, it's my desire to set up pro bono with many of the legal practitioners in the different states. If you are in Sokoto State and there's a breach or violation, this is the office to go to. Tell them your story, they'll follow it up. I need to reach many senior advocates of Nigeria, law offices who will agree to partner with us. You know, we are not going to, when it gets to telling the stories on the people's lawyer, we're not going to say this is who gave us the story. But in terms of attending to the pro bono needs of anyone, we definitely have people who will follow it up from lawyer's office to court until good justice is gotten.
How would you describe the current state of Nollywood compared to 20 years ago? What would you say has changed, and what can be improved upon?
Very fantastic question. Well, Nollywood is not where it used to be, but definitely not where it should be. It has left, and it's from crawling to walking, standing up to some responsibility. At least many of our movies are on Netflix, Amazon, and so on. That shows you there has been improvement. There's always room for, the route to success is always under construction. So Nollywood also remains in continuum, that it has left from that ground of tottering and can make statements. We're not comparing ourselves to any other wood, Bollywood or Hollywood, but the fact of the matter is Nollywood has become the mecca for African countries. We're leading many other countries, even though we complain about distribution, weak infrastructure of production and so on. We are still light years ahead of many countries. So comparably, I give kudos to Nollywood practitioners, especially the private producers who work day and night to ensure they improve on quality. It's a very encouraging thing that people have lifted Nollywood from where it is. And also kudos to those who are in the areas in Asaba, on Onitsha, Enugu, Lagos, Abuja, doing one or two things, all in the name of keeping Nollywood afloat.
That's our program. Until next time, don't forget that you can catch this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Millicent Walker. Thank you for watching.